Have you ever wondered how many firearms are in circulation worldwide? It's a question that raises eyebrows and causes a stir in conversations. The answer, however, is a bit more complex than you might imagine. In the grand scheme of things, the world is teeming with firearms in the hands of law enforcement, military personnel, and civilians alike. From the bustling metropolises of developed nations to the remote corners of emerging economies, guns are a ubiquitous presence. This video is about to delve into the unsettling facts and statistics surrounding the global use of firearms. We'll be exploring the sheer volume of guns in circulation, the deadly trade of arms, the cost of gun violence, and why this is a pressing global issue. So, how many guns do you think are out there? You might be surprised. And as we move forward, remember, knowledge is power, and understanding this issue is the first step towards making a change. The answer is staggering. As of today, there are estimated to be over 1 billion firearms in circulation worldwide. That's approximately one firearm for every 7 people on planet Earth. This number is mind-boggling, but it becomes even more alarming when we break it down. Let's take a look at the distribution of these firearms. The United States, for instance, is home to nearly half of all civilian-owned guns globally, despite making up less than 5% of the world's population. This translates to roughly 120 firearms for every 100 people. It's a ratio that outstrips any other country in the world. In contrast, countries like Japan and South Korea have some of the lowest rates of gun ownership. In Japan, for instance, there are less than 1 firearm for every 100 people. This stark disparity in gun ownership speaks volumes about the differing attitudes towards firearms across the globe. Now let's turn our attention to the production of these firearms. The vast majority are manufactured by just a handful of countries. The United States, Russia, and China lead the way, producing millions of firearms every year. This trio, along with a few others, are the main players in an industry that is estimated to be worth over $100 billion annually. It's also worth noting that the military and law enforcement agencies account for a significant proportion of the global firearms count. These institutions possess an estimated quarter of all firearms worldwide, a figure that underscores the immense firepower at the disposal of governments and their security forces. Finally, let's consider the illegal firearms trade. While difficult to quantify, estimates suggest there are tens of millions of illicit guns worldwide. These weapons, often smuggled across borders, fuel violence and instability in many parts of the world. But that's not all. The numbers get even more shocking when we look at how these firearms are used. Did you know that the majority of homicides worldwide are committed using firearms? This may sound surprising, but it's an unfortunate reality. Firearms play a significant role in homicides globally. Each year, thousands of lives are lost due to gun violence, and it's a problem that's showing no signs of slowing down. Now, you might be asking, just how many lives are we talking about? Well, let's delve into the statistics. According to a recent report by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, nearly 500,000 people die due to intentional homicide each year. That's equivalent to 1 person every minute. And what's more shocking is that, out of these, approximately 200,000 deaths are attributed to firearms. So, yes, firearms are a major player in the deadly game of homicides. But why is this the case? There are several factors at play here. For one, firearms are relatively easy to acquire in many parts of the world. In some countries, lax gun control laws mean that almost anyone can buy a gun with minimal background checks. Then there's the issue of illegal gun trade. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry that thrives on conflict and insecurity, putting deadly weapons in the hands of those who are willing to use them for harm. Moreover, the destructive power of firearms cannot be overstated. A single pull of the trigger can end a life in an instant, making firearms the weapon of choice for those looking to exert power or control. But it's important to remember that these numbers, as shocking as they may be, are not just statistics. They represent real people with real lives that have been cut short. Each number is a story of a life taken too soon, a family left grieving, and a community left in fear. So, as we continue to grapple with the global problem of firearm violence, let's not forget the human cost. Because behind every statistic, there's a face, a name, and a life that mattered. These numbers are not just statistics, they represent real people, with real lives that have been cut short. The impact of gun violence goes beyond the loss of life. It also has a profound economic cost. Let's delve into the economic repercussions of gun violence, which are often overlooked in the face of immediate human tragedy. First and foremost, The healthcare costs associated with gun violence are staggering. In the aftermath of a shooting, there's immediate emergency care, surgeries, and hospital stays. The long-term medical care, rehabilitation, and mental health services can stretch on for years, even a lifetime, incurring a massive financial toll. Now, think about the loss of productivity. When a person becomes a victim of gun violence, their contribution to the workforce can be significantly diminished or even completely lost. The repercussions are not just felt by the individual but also by their employers, families, and the economy as a whole. It's like an unseen ripple, spreading out and touching a myriad of lives in ways we may not fully comprehend. And then there's the impact on communities. Neighborhoods plagued by gun violence often witness a decrease in property values, hurting homeowners and local businesses. The fear and anxiety that permeate these areas can lead to a loss of social cohesion, further undermining the community's economic vitality. Additionally, these communities often require increased policing and security measures, which also come with a hefty price tag. We must also consider the cost of incarceration. When a person is convicted of a crime involving a firearm, the cost of their imprisonment is borne by society. This includes not only the direct costs of maintaining prisons but also the indirect costs associated with the lost potential of those incarcerated. In the end, the economic impact of gun violence is a complex web of direct and indirect costs that touch every corner of society. It's a hefty price tag that we pay in dollars, in lost potential, and in the fraying of our social fabric. The cost of gun violence is a burden that we all bear, whether we realize it or not. Gun violence is not just an issue in one country or region, it is a truly global problem. Consider the vastness of our world, with its 7 continents and over 200 countries. Now understand that each of these countries, regardless of its size, wealth, or political system, grapples with the issue of gun violence. Let's take a trip around the globe, shedding light on the gravity of this issue. We'll start with South America, where Brazil has one of the highest rates of firearm-related deaths worldwide. In the year 2021 alone, thousands of lives were lost to gun violence in Brazil, a grim testament to the pervasiveness of this issue. Moving to North America, the United States, despite its economic prosperity and advanced legal system, struggles with a high rate of gun violence. Year after year, the United States sees more mass shootings than any other country. In Africa, countries like South Africa and Nigeria are similarly plagued by high rates of firearm-related deaths. Here, the issue is often compounded by political instability and rampant crime. Even in Europe, often praised for its strict gun control laws, countries like Russia and Ukraine see an alarmingly high number of gun-related deaths each year. Asia, the largest continent, is no stranger to this issue, with countries like the Philippines and Afghanistan grappling with high rates of gun violence due to political unrest and ongoing conflict. Finally, in Oceania, a region often considered peaceful, countries like Papua New Guinea face significant challenges with gun violence, demonstrating that no region is immune. In each of these diverse corners of the world, we find a common thread: the devastating impact of firearms. The faces, languages, and backgrounds may change, but the stories of loss, fear, and devastation are strikingly similar. It's clear that gun violence is not confined to any one country or region. It's a worldwide epidemic, a shared struggle that crosses borders, cultures, and socioeconomic divides. This is a problem that requires not just local or national solutions but a coordinated global response. Gun violence is a global issue that requires a global solution. The statistics we've shared today are more than just numbers, they are a call to action. We've walked through the chilling reality of the global gun epidemic and how it's not merely a numbers game. It's an intricate web of deadly trade with a terrifyingly high cost of gun violence. We've explored how it's a global issue affecting every corner of the world in some form or another. This is not just about the cold, hard facts, but about the human lives behind these statistics. Each firearm used, each bullet fired, each life lost sends ripple effects through communities and generations. We encourage you to consider the impact of gun violence and to support efforts to reduce it. Whether through legislation, education, or community programs, every step taken is a step closer to a safer world. The use of firearms is a complex issue with far-reaching implications. It's time to face these lethal statistics and seek solutions.